The Pulitzer Prize for Drama is supposed to honor the very best of American theater. But let's be honest, sometimes the Pulitzer Committee gets it spectacularly wrong. In this video, I'm counting down the 10 worst choices of all time. Plays that history has forgotten, or plays that beat out other works which went on to be far more influential and enduring. Now, full disclosure, my whole Alternate Pulitzers series, trying to follow in the footsteps of the alternate Oscars trend for film buffs, hasn't exactly lit the YouTube world on fire. Hardly anyone's voted in my online poll, but I still think this is a conversation for theater people to be having. So I'm going to give it another push, and I'd love for you to check out the other videos in this playlist and cast your own vote on my blog. Now, before I jump into the list, I wanted to say a few words about how I made my choices. Of course, my personal taste plays a role. But more importantly, I've tried to go with the plays that history itself has voted for. If 50 years later a play is still being produced regularly by community theaters and taught in schools, that's a pretty strong endorsement from the entire theater world. By contrast, if a Pulitzer winner has completely vanished from the stage, that's a sign that it probably didn't deserve the honor in the first place. Example, take 1946. The Pulitzer went to State of the Union. I actually liked that play, and I'm not personally a big fan of Garson Kanon's Born Yesterday. But history is a stronger judge than me, as the latter still gets regularly staged. So by this count, I would still have to say that Born Yesterday deserved the win. I also took into consideration which choices may now seem very dated, and especially those that by today's standards may even be considered offensive to many. So with these considerations in mind, let's dive right in to the top 10 Pulitzer Prize for Drama mistakes. At number 10, we start with Maxwell Anderson's Both Your Houses. Now, the message of the play is basically Mercutio's famous line, "Both parties are corrupt, democracy is broken, government can't work." Sound familiar? Sure, people love to say the same thing today. But in 1933, the very year Franklin Roosevelt took office, that was the worst possible time to send that message, because FDR was proving that government could work, saving democracy by restoring people's faith in it. History hasn't been kind to this play. Anderson definitely deserved the award on many occasions, but not this one. Probably part of the reason for the win, as movie buffs know, happens so often with the Oscar picks. Far better choices in 1933 would have been Elmer Rice's We the People, my personal pick, or the classic comedy Dinner at 8, which is still performed today. At number 9, we've got Fiorello, a musical about New York Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia. Now, he was an important historical figure, but let's be honest. When was the last time you saw the musical about him staged? Exactly. In spite of the man being such an important figure in history, the musical about him has basically disappeared. Meanwhile, 1960 gave us some true classics, The Miracle Worker, Gore Vidal's The Best Man, and my personal choice, The Andersonville Trial, a gripping courtroom drama that tackled the morality of the "I was just following orders" defense decades before A Few Good Men. With all those on the table, rewarding Fiorello just doesn't hold up. Number 8 is Archibald MacLeish's J.B., a retelling of the Book of Job written in verse. And I'll be honest, I've never understood why he chose verse here. It's not rhymed, it's not musical, it just feels forced. The result? A play that's been largely forgotten. And yet, the same year gave us Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun, a genuine classic, prophetic in its themes, and an essential part of the American theater canon, especially as the civil rights movement gained steam. J.B. might have felt ambitious in its time, but history has spoken. A Raisin in the Sun should have been the winner. At number 7 is the Teahouse of the August Moon. At the time, it was seen as lighthearted comedy. Today, it comes off as corny at best and offensive at worst, with its stereotype portrayals of Asians, made worse by the film adaptation, putting Marlon Brando in yellowface. Now, some people may disagree with the eligibility of my alternate pick, the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial, because it was adapted from a novel that had already won a Pulitzer in that category, but it is a brilliant courtroom drama and deserves credit on its own. And if not that, Horton Foote's The Trip to Bountiful is another enduring favorite from that year. Either way, history has not been kind to Teahouse. At number 6, we have one of the most blatant examples of politics interfering with art. Hell Bent for Heaven. Not only is the play itself forgettable, but the way it won is infamous. The Pulitzer Committee had chosen George Kelly as the show-off, but the trustees of Columbia University, who oversee the prize, vetoed their choice and awarded it instead to a play written by, conveniently, a Columbia professor. Talk about a conflict of interest. It's remembered today less as a piece of theater and more as a controversy. And if that's the main reason a play is remembered, that's not a good sign. At number 5, we've got They Knew What They Wanted. This play is full of offensive Italian stereotypes and even outright slurs that would never fly today. And here's the kicker. 1925 was the year Maxwell Anderson gave us What Price Glory, one of the most enduring anti-war plays in the American theater. A true classic, and probably Anderson's best work. Ironically, he didn't win for that. Just like I mentioned earlier, he was eventually given a Pulitzer for a far less deserving piece, almost as if the committee was trying to make up for years of snubs. But they missed a chance to recognize his masterpiece. At number 4, it's Of Thee I Sing. Now, George S. Kaufman was one of the great American playwrights, but this was not his finest hour. It's a satirical musical about American democracy that feels especially corny, and much like with Both Your Houses, it portrays democracy as a joke, at a time in history we should actually be nostalgic about, when it was proving it could work. And let's not forget what it beat out. Eugene O'Neill's Morning Becomes Electra, one of his most ambitious works, retelling the classic Greek tragedy in a uniquely American way. Or Philip Berry's The Animal Kingdom, a comedy that still has fans. Honestly, Of Thee I Sing feels like one of the least worthy Pulitzers ever given. At number 3, we have The Old Maid. It's so completely forgotten that I couldn't even track down a copy to read during my research for these videos. That says it all. Meanwhile, 1935 gave us 2 stone-cold classics, Lillian Hellman's The Children's Hour and Clifford Odets' Awake and Sing. 2 of America's greatest playwrights, and for each, arguably, their greatest works. Both have stood the test of time. Both are still discussed and performed. And yet, the Pulitzer went to something that's vanished without a trace. That's the definition of a bad choice. At number 2, we've got the year the Pulitzer Committee gave the prize to no play at all. Now, sometimes when this happens, it's another case of Columbia University's trustees overruling the jury for political reasons. But in 1947, I couldn't find clear evidence of why. If any of you know, please drop it in the comments. I'd love to learn more. But whatever the reason, here's why it's so outrageous in this particular case. That same year saw the debut of Miller's All My Sons and O'Neill's The Iceman Cometh, 2 of the greatest American plays ever written in the same year. Honestly, my hardest decision in making this series was choosing between those two for my vote. But for the Pulitzer Board to give nothing in a year with both of them on the table, that is simply unforgivable. And finally, number 1, the Green Pastures. Now, the competition in this year wasn't overflowing with timeless masterpieces. You had George S. Kaufman's June Moon and Martin Flavin's The Criminal Code, which was my personal pick because it offered a sharp look at America's prison system that was ahead of its time and inspired an interesting film adaptation with Boris Karloff. But The Green Pastures? It's corny, it's simplistic, and worst of all, it's full of offensive stereotypes of African Americans. I tried watching the film version for my research, and not only was it hard to sit through, but the DVD actually began with a disclaimer apologizing for the racism you're about to see. That pretty much sums it up. Out of all the Pulitzer Prize winners, this one has aged the worst. So, those are my picks for the top 10 worst Pulitzer decisions. But this is just my list. What about yours? Which Pulitzer winners do you think history has proved wrong? If you want to dive deeper, I've got a whole playlist of Alternate Pulitzers videos where I go year by year, one video per decade, and I'd love for you to cast your own votes in the online poll on my blog. The link is in the description. And, of course, if you love talking theater history or just the art of performance, stick around. That's what we do here on this channel. I'll see you next time.